Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world softens and sound folds into shadow, there is movement in the air, delicate, purposeful, and nearly unseen. Somewhere between the hush of leaves and the sigh of the wind, a moth drifts. Not lost, not random, but gently guided by an ancient sense we are only beginning to understand. Its wings, thin as ash and laced like old parchment, beat not just for flight, but for direction. The moth is not wandering. It is navigating. With no map, no voice, and no lantern, it knows where to go. We might think of moths as aimless flutterers drawn foolishly to flame, helpless in their longing for light. But this story is softer and stranger, because in the darkness, moths are not flying blindly. They are reading the sky with a memory that lives not in the brain, but in the body itself. Their antennae feel more than touch, their eyes see more than shapes. And inside them is a compass that turns not by hands, but by invisible fields. Let's begin here, with light. To you, light is obvious. You see it stream through windows and flicker in lamps. But for a moth, light is not just something to see. It's a signal, a structure, a way of knowing the shape of the night. Moths evolved in a world where the moon was the brightest thing in the sky. And they learned long ago to keep it to one side, not by choice but by instinct. If the moon is always over your left shoulder, you will fly in a straight line. But what happens when a human light, closer, harsher, and far more confusing, takes the moon's place? They spiral, they loop, they circle a bulb endlessly, not because they love it, but because their compass becomes a lie. What once guided them now betrays them, and still they follow. It's not foolishness, it's commitment, it's memory, echoing back thousands of generations whispering, "Keep the light beside you and you will go true." Now imagine the antennae. Twin threads reaching forward like questions, tasting the night. These aren't just feelers, they're exquisitely tuned sensors capable of detecting the faintest scents on the wind. But more than that, they are electric. They are covered in tiny pores, lined with nerve endings, and they pulse with signals. Some of those signals come from pheromones, scented messages from other moths. Others may come from the world itself, because the air, though invisible, is full of direction. There are magnetic fields weaving through it, subtle gradients of temperature and smell, and moths, astonishingly, may be able to sense them. Scientists believe that within their tiny heads may lie molecules of magnetite, small grains of iron like compass needles, that align with the Earth's magnetic field. These particles, dancing with gravity and pull, help the moth feel where north is, without ever seeing it. There's a strange beauty in this. A creature with no language for direction, no conscious thought of maps, carries in its wings a system more precise than our best instruments. And it doesn't need to know how it works, it just trusts the tug. It follows what feels true. Its flight is not calculation. It's a kind of faith, written in biology, whispered through evolution. As the night deepens and the stars draw their silver lace across the sky, moths continue to move, not chaotically, not blindly, but with gentle precision. They travel to mate, to feed, to lay eggs on the exact kind of plant their children will need. Each decision, where to fly, when to stop, what to follow, is shaped by invisible cues. A rise in humidity, a shift in the wind, a flicker of moonlight on a leaf, and though the moth does not speak of these things, it listens. If you were to walk through a garden at midnight, you might see one. Just a flicker at first, and soft and pale. It may pause near a flower hovering with the grace of breath. It will not stay long. But in that moment, you're witnessing a conversation you cannot hear, a story not told in words but in wing beats and wind paths. You are seeing instinct as navigation, fragility as intelligence, and beneath it all, something quieter still. The earth itself, turning, its magnetic field curving like invisible ribbons through the sky. Moths don't see it, but they feel it, deep in their cells, like a pull in the bones. It's as if the planet speaks a language only some creatures remember, and the moth, in its tiny, tremulous way, listens with its whole body. So the next time you see one dancing near your porch light, pause. Know that it isn't lost. It is trying. It is remembering. It is moving not toward the flame, but towards something much older, an ancient line drawn across the night sky. A compass not of steel and needle, but of scent and silence. Fragile wings, folded around a direction that even darkness cannot erase. Let's drift deeper into this night, where direction hides not in signs or spoken commands, but in the hush between wing beats. The moth's compass is not one thing. It is many threads woven together. Light, magnetism, scent, temperature, even memory. Each piece alone may seem small, but together they form something exquisite, an invisible map written in the fabric of nature. Consider how a moth finds its way across miles of land, often through forests, valleys, and human towns, just to reach the right patch of blooming flowers. It doesn't see highways or rooftops. It doesn't read the horizon as we do. Instead, it follows gradients. Soft changes in the scent of a flower, a trace of humidity rising in the evening air, the direction of a wind brushed across its body. Like an artist feeling their way through darkness, the moth moves with intuition sharpened by survival. And then there is the moon, always present in this story, even when hidden behind clouds. Moths evolved with the moon as their North Star. They used its constant presence to fly straight, because when a light source is far away, keeping it at a steady angle will guide you forward. But when that light is close, like a porch lamp, the angle changes rapidly, and so the moth spirals, confused. Still, it obeys what evolution has taught it. It trusts its compass, even when the world has shifted around it. Some species fly astonishing distances. The silver Y moth, for instance, migrates between Europe and Africa, sometimes crossing entire countries on wings thinner than paper. How does it do this? Researchers now believe that these moths combine magnetic sensing with wind pattern, reading and thermal navigation. They may not be able to plan a route like we do, but they can feel one. Like music that guides the body without thought, the Earth's subtle cues move through them. Inside their small heads are compound eyes, faceted like gems, each tiny lens pointing in a slightly different direction. These eyes can see ultraviolet light, which many flowers reflect at night. They can detect polarized light patterns in the sky, even when the moon is faint or absent. Imagine seeing the world through such a lens, not in color alone, but in direction. The entire sky becomes a map, even if it looks like a mystery to us. Then there's the sense of smell, one of the most powerful tools a moth has. Their antennae can detect a single molecule of scent among billions. A male moth can find a female from miles away simply by catching the whisper of her pheromones on the breeze. This is not chance. This is tracking with the precision of a scientist and the sensitivity of a poet. Every flutter of air becomes a clue, every molecule a note in the song of arrival. Even heat becomes part of the equation. Moths are cold-blooded, and many warm themselves by shivering, vibrating their flight muscles before they take off. But some are also tuned to the warmth of flowers. Certain blossoms emit heat at night, ever so slightly, and moths learn to associate that warmth with nectar. The heat becomes another star in their constellation of scents, another lantern in the dark. In all this, there is no voice saying go left or go now. There is only sensation carried through nerves and shaped by the instinct. The moth does not know it is navigating, it simply moves. Yet what it follows is a symphony of cues, light, magnetism, scent, wind, heat, the boat playing its part. And here too is something else, memory. Not memory as we think of it in thoughts and language, but a cellular memory of where to lay eggs, of what time the flowers bloom, of how the wind changes when the season turns. This memory is passed not from experience alone, but from genes. Moths that survived remembered. And that memory, silent and precise, now lives in every flight. When a moth returns to a valley where its ancestors flew, it is not wandering. It is returning without knowing. The plants it chooses, the hours it keeps, even the angle it holds its wings, these are echoes of something ancient. Every flap carries the voice of hundreds of generations. It is history written not in books, but in behavior. Imagine now a world before electricity, a world where the night was truly dark and the moon reigned alone. Moths then flew without interruption. Their compass pointed true. But as human light filled the sky, their map changed. And yet they still follow it, still seek the moon, still spiral toward what feels right. Their systems are not broken. They are simply mismatched to this new brightness. And there is poetry in that persistence. A quiet dignity in the way these creatures continue to trust the cues that once served them so well. They do not give up their search. They do not stop reading the air or listening to the earth. Even in confusion, they move with grace. To watch a moth is to witness faith, in the old paths, in the unseen signals, in the earth's soft voice. Their wings may look fragile, but they carry wisdom. Not the wisdom of thought, but the wisdom of pattern. The kind of knowing that trees have and rivers and stars. And when you see one pressed against your window trembling softly in the night, know that it's not lost. It is navigating the world the best way it knows how. It is listening to an orchestra we can barely hear. And through all our noise and light and glass, it is still following the pulse of the planet. You might not hear it, but the moth does. A field hums, a scent drifts, a beam of moonlight slips between clouds. And the moth, remembering something deeper than language, lifts its wings and follows. Now let's return to that moment of flight, the gentle beat of wings in a sky most of us sleep through. There's something soft and miraculous about how a moth continues its journey, even when the lights mislead, even when the night grows colder than it remembers. In this last part of its story, we drift with it, not just as observers, but as quiet companions to something ancient and fragile, fluttering through a world that is both beautiful and bewildering. Many moths live only for a short time, some for a few days, some for a few weeks. And yet, in that brief passage through the dark, they accomplish wonders. They travel across fields and forests, searching for the right bloom, the right mate, the right hour. Each choice feels like instinct, but hidden behind that word is something deeper: calibration. The moth adjusts, it listens to change, it feels when the wind is wrong, or the moon too high, or the flowers not yet open. It waits, or it pivots. It does not force, it responds. And this perhaps is the true compass, the ability not just to follow, but to feel the subtle shifts and move gently with them. We tend to think of navigation as a direct path from one place to another, but the moth's way is not a line, it is a dance, a curving, circling, flowing path through invisible forces. Its direction is not straight, it is true. There's a difference. One can march, the other listens. Now imagine the night itself as an ocean. The air becomes water. The flowers are islands, the stars are lanterns reflecting off the surface. And the moth becomes a swimmer, not pushing against the waves but gliding with them. Its wings do not conquer the dark, they belong to it, they move in rhythm with it. And because of that, the moth finds its way. Even the smallest of its movements is full of meaning. The angle of approach to a flower, the sudden shift when it senses another moth nearby, the pause before it lands. All of these are decisions, shaped by signals too subtle for us to notice. But the moth notices. It notices everything. The world to it is not quiet. It is full of whispers. It is a map made of touch and scent and flicker and wind. And sometimes that map changes. Sometimes a storm rolls in, or a forest is cut, or the temperature is not what it should be. Still, the moth flies. Still, it adapts. In the story of life on Earth, moths have always been survivors. Their ancestors flew among the dinosaurs. They adapted through ice ages and warmings. They have seen the world shift more times than we can count. And still they return each spring, as delicate and determined as ever. Their story is a reminder. You don't have to be strong to be steady. You don't have to be loud to be wise. Even something as fragile as a moth can carry knowledge older than any book. It lives in their wings, in their antennae, in the way they move without question, yet always with care. And this matters because the world they rely on is changing. Artificial lights stretch further into the night. Urban skies no longer sleep. The signals they trust are growing harder to hear. And yet the moths continue. They do not argue with the night, they adapt to it. They find the shadows between the lights. They learn to fly lower, or later, or not at all. Their compass bends, but it does not break. There is something quietly heroic about that. In a time where change feels constant and disorienting, the moth offers us another way. Not resistance, but resilience. Not speed, but sensitivity. To move through the world like a moth is to move softly, with openness. To feel where the pull leads, even when the destination is unclear. And though they never stop to reflect, we can. We can learn from their pattern. We can listen to the cues around us, the mood in a room, the rhythm of a conversation, the moment when silence is kinder than speech. Like the moth, we carry compasses we don't always understand, instincts, feelings, hunches, and while we may never explain them fully, we can trust that they come from somewhere deep. Maybe this is why the moth is drawn to the flame. Not because it loves it, but because it remembers something about the moon, its safety, its guidance, its presence in the night. The light feels familiar, and so it goes, again and again, into the brightness that once meant direction. We often pity the moth for this, but perhaps we shouldn't. It is not foolishness, it is longing. It is a memory of something that used to guide, even if it no longer does. In the end, the moth's journey is not one of mistake, but of persistence. It does not stop seeking. It does not stop moving. And somewhere in that quiet, repetitive flight there is wisdom. A way of being that is rooted not in conquering, but in sensing. Not in loud certainty, but in soft trust. So if you ever sit beneath a night sky and see one of them drift past, white against black like a dream, it's worth pausing. Let it be a reminder that navigation is not always about knowing the way. Sometimes it's about listening, about following what feels true even when it doesn't make sense, about holding steady in a world that moves. Because even in darkness there are paths, even in confusion there is grace, and even the most fragile wings can find their way home. High above the trees and rooftops, there drifts a light that has guided more than just human dreams. The moon, soft and silver, seems to watch over the earth in silence. But to some creatures, it speaks, not with words, but with direction. In the language of shadows and shine, it whispers a kind of north. And for animals that move by night, that whisper is everything. This is not the navigation we know, it isn't maps and street signs, it isn't turn-by-turn instructions. It's a relationship between light and instinct, sky and memory. From birds to beetles, from turtles to moths, the moon is more than a glowing coin in the sky. It is a compass, ancient, patient, and constant. Imagine a young sea turtle newly hatched, pushing itself across sand that still holds the warmth of day. It doesn't wait. It doesn't look around. It crawls toward the ocean, toward the moonlight reflecting off waves. Scientists once believed the turtle simply saw the brightest horizon and followed it. But the story is gentler, more layered. The turtle doesn't just chase light. It feels the cool pull of the water, the sound of the sea, the angle of the moon above. All of it combines into a quiet command. Go there. And it does. This moon-guided movement is not limited to the sea. Birds flying thousands of miles use the moon to correct their course, especially when stars are hidden. Their internal clocks align with the rhythms of the lunar cycle. Some even wait for specific phases of the moon to begin migration, trusting in its shape to time their departure. These aren't choices made in thought, they are decisions grown into feathers and bone. Beetles, too, have been seen dancing in circles beneath moonlight. But this dance is not random, it is a calculation. A species of dung beetle, for instance, uses the moon's light and the Milky Way's glow to roll its food in a straight line away from competition. That glow becomes a road in the sky, and even the smallest of creatures reads it. And yet the moon's light is not always reliable. Clouds pass, cities glow, artificial lights drown out its signal. Still, the animals keep trying. Still, they wait for clear skies, for quieter nights, for a time when their compass returns. This is not stubbornness, it is patience. A kind of faith that the Earth's old patterns still hold meaning. There is something deeply moving in that. We often forget how many lives depend on the moon, not just in myth, but in motion. It is a guide for birth and travel, for mating and resting. Its pull shapes the tides, yes, but it also shapes the lives that rise and fall with them. Crabs time their migrations with the full moon. Corals release their eggs into the water all at once under its silver gaze. These rhythms are not planned. They are felt. The moon does not shout. It does not command. It suggests. And creatures listen, not with ears, but with bodies, with eyes tuned to twilight, with instincts sharpened by time. Even bats, masters of echolocation, sometimes use the moon's position to adjust their routes. The light doesn't tell them where to go, it tells them where they are. Now imagine the sky as a vast clock. The stars are its numbers, the moon is its moving hand, and animals, those who still live close to night, read that clock with a fluency we've almost forgotten. It tells them when to rest, when to feed, when to journey. This is not superstition, it is survival. And in that survival there is a kind of poetry, a way of being that trusts the heavens, even in their silence. You could say these creatures are guided by light, but it's more than that. They are guided by the rhythm, by the rising and setting, by the arc and angle. They don't need to understand it, they just need to feel it, and they do. The moon to us is often a decoration, a backdrop, a symbol, but to the owl hunting in the dusk, to the frog calling beside a pond, to the salmon turning upstream at just the right moment, it is more than that. It is a marker, a signal, a presence. Without it, the world grows less certain. And so they wait for it. They notice when it changes. They move with its waxing and waning. Some butterflies delay their migration until the moon returns to a certain height. Fireflies flash in patterns that match its cycle. Even the coral reefs pulse in time with its phase, as if the moon were a conductor and the sea its orchestra. We rarely notice these things. We live in rooms with artificial light behind curtains and screens. The moon is just a face in the sky, but the wild still listens, the forest still pays attention, and in that attention lies a connection older than speech. So the next time you see a moth circling your porch lamp, or a turtle crawling toward the sea, remember they are not lost. They are listening. They are trying to follow a voice that once guided everything and still tries to guide even through the noise. That voice is the moon, and it still whispers north. Let's drift further now, deeper into the world shaped not by the brightness of day, but by the subtle choreography of moonlight. There's a quiet order in the night, a rhythm that guides not only where animals go, but how they live. Beneath the surface of behaviour lies something invisible but constant, a clock made of light. The moon, even in its corner, tells the world what time it is, and those who move beneath its glow have learned to follow that silent timekeeper with extraordinary grace. Think of the Arctic tern, a bird that migrates farther than any other, from the polar north to the polar south and back again. It flies tens of thousands of miles, cutting across vast oceans and open skies. During parts of its journey, the moon becomes one of the few reliable companions. In the shifting winds and changing skies, it uses lunar light and the polarization of that light to keep course. It may not see north the way we do on a compass, but in the shimmer of moonlight on waves, in the angles of reflected glow, it finds its way home. Or imagine a salamander living in the damp shadow of forest leaves. Most of its life is hidden, secret. But during mating season, when the moon is full and the rain has softened the soil, it emerges. Not at random, not just because the urge rises. It comes when the moon calls, and it's not alone. Dozens, hundreds of salamanders gather under the same moonlit timing, following the same silent instruction. It's as if their hearts beat with lunar pulses, and they listen. We've long known that the moon affects tides, but its influence goes deeper. In the open ocean, fish respond to the phases of the moon. Some rise closer to the surface at night, feeding in the faint light. Others descend, hiding in the deep. The moon becomes a curtain, sometimes drawing creatures closer to visibility, sometimes cloaking them in safety. This dance happens every night, across millions of species, across every ocean, and none of them need a clock. They only need the moon. Even plants, though rooted and still, respond to lunar rhythms. Some researchers have observed flowers that bloom more fully beneath a waxing moon, or that time their pollen release with specific lunar phases. These are not coincidences. They are ancient habits carried through generations. The moon does not force them, it invites them, and the invitation is rarely refused. And while we tend to separate science from softness, these phenomena carry both. A snail climbing a blade of grass on a full moon night is not just obeying biology, it is performing something sacred. a ritual older than our species, a quiet answer to a call only some remember to hear. In Africa, wildebeest time their great migration to match the cycles of the moon. Herds numbering in the thousands move together, not just by scent or season, but by light. Studies suggest that the full moon offers greater visibility against predators, allowing calves to be born in greater safety. So the moon once again becomes protector, midwife, signal. And through it, entire ecosystems respond. Then there are fireflies, tiny lanterns blinking in rhythm with one another. Their flashes are shaped by chemistry, but also by timing. In some species, males coordinate their signals with such precision that entire forests pulse in waves of light. But when the moon is bright, the patterns shift. Some slow down, some grow quiet, some change frequency. It's not fear, it's adjustment, a recalibration based on the light that blankets their world. And so we begin to see how complex this lunar guidance really is. It is not just direction, it is timing, it is safety, it is rhythm. And animals, especially those that live close to the Earth, on its soil, in its water, beneath its sky, have learned to listen with an intimacy we can barely comprehend. They don't just see the moon, they absorb it. This kind of knowing doesn't come from learning, it comes from being. It is written into bones and feathers and scales. It is not taught, it is inherited. And when the moon changes, when clouds cover it or cities outshine it or its pull becomes harder to detect, these creatures feel the difference. Some wait, some falter, some adapt, and that adaptation is a story of quiet resilience. Because the moon, though ancient, is not always reliable anymore, not in a world full of artificial lights. Baby turtles crawl toward parking lots confused by street lamps. Birds crash into buildings, drawn off course by skyscraper glow. Insects swarm unnatural lights, leaving their moon behind. These are not failures of instinct. They are mismatches. The world has shifted, but the signals haven't. Still they try, they circle, they pause, they realign. There's something hopeful in that. A persistence, a deep remembering. The night still holds its truths, even if we have made them harder to hear. The moon still shines, even if we forget to look. To witness it, truly witness it, is to realize that the night is not empty. It is not silent. It is not still. It is a vast conversation spoken in movements and migrations, in flashes and flight paths, in openings and returns. And at the center of it all, quiet and constant, is the moon. Not a god, not a ruler, but a gentle presence, a suggestion, a rhythm. The animals do not worship it. They trust it. They move with it. And in doing so, they remind us of something we have nearly forgotten. That direction does not always come from knowing. Sometimes it comes from feeling, from watching, from listening, from moving when the time is right, even if you don't know exactly why. So when you see the moon tonight, whether it's a sliver or a full glowing disk, pause for a moment. Somewhere a creature is adjusting its wings, somewhere a flower is beginning to open, somewhere a tiny heartbeat is sinking to the pulse of light in the sky, and all of them are listening to the same whisper, the same gentle north. Now let us return to the soft light that has been rising and falling long before memory, long before maps. The moon, ancient and tireless, still drifts across the night sky. Its glow changes shape from curve to circle to shadow, but its presence remains. And beneath that glow, life continues to move in gentle, deliberate ways. This is the final thread of our story, how the moon does not just guide the body, but the heart of the living world. How it shapes not just travel, but time, connection, and rest. Imagine the first humans sitting beside fires on cool nights, looking up. Before clocks, before calendars, the moon marked their days. It told them when the tides would rise, when the rivers would flood, when animals would breed. But humans weren't alone in watching. Even then, even long before, the rest of the earth had been listening too. Birds adjusting their calls, frogs rising from the mud to sing, fish turning with the moonlit tide, a whole orchestra of life, each player guided by a soft rhythm above. Among many shorebirds, breeding season is synced with moonlight. Parents must know when to lay their eggs, so that the hatchlings emerge during the spring tides, when the food is richest and the risk is lowest. But they don't use calendars. They wait for the shape of the moon to shift, They feel its timing in their blood, in the change of light on the sand, in the silence that comes before the full moon crests. That's when they move, that's when they begin. And while we often think of the instincts as simple, they are anything but. The ability to act without knowing why, because the body remembers what the mind never knew, is one of the oldest forms of wisdom. The moon is not worshipped. It is woven into the body. It turns not just the tides of the ocean, but the tides within, fluid rhythms of hormones, rest and wakefulness. It speaks to cycles we forget we carry. Some studies suggest that even humans respond to lunar rhythms. In villages without electric light, sleep patterns often follow the moon. More sleep on darker nights, more waking during the full moon. It's as if part of us still remembers the sky as our ceiling, still listens for cues hidden in its glow. And even now, with satellites and screens, planes and passwords, the moon remains. It is one of the few constants left. And for the creatures who still live close to the earth, who do not hide behind glass or walls, it is enough. It tells them when to sing, when to rest, when to find one another in the dark. Bats, for example, reduce their flight on the brightest nights, not out of fear, but caution. More light means more danger from predators, so they stay hidden, adjusting their rhythm. Owls, on the other hand, may use the light to their advantage, gliding silently through open meadows where prey is now easier to see. The same moon speaks differently to each ear. In this way, the moon becomes not a leader, but a mirror. It reflects the needs of each creature differently. It shines, and the world responds, not with sameness, but with diversity. Some rise, some wait, some bloom, some close, but all are aware, all are listening. In places where artificial light has drowned the sky, this relationship begins to fade. Birds mistake skyscraper reflections for stars. Sea turtles crawl toward parking lots. Frogs grow quiet in polluted ponds. And yet even so, the lunar rhythm is not entirely lost. It still pulls on tides, still glows behind clouds, still shapes migration and mating, birth and rest. Like a song that plays beneath the noise of traffic, it continues, waiting for quiet ears. We often speak of guidance as something rigid, like a command, but the moon teaches otherwise. It guides through presence, not pressure. Through rhythm, not rule. Its light doesn't push, it invites. Its cycle doesn't demand, it suggests. And still, the world listens. That kind of guidance is rare, and maybe that is why the moon matters so deeply, not just to birds and beetles, but to all of us. It reminds us that direction can come gently, that it's possible to be steady without shouting, that constancy can be quiet. So when we lose our way, not in the forest but in life, it helps to remember the moth and the turtle, the owl and the coral. Creatures that do not reason but still find their way. Creatures that have never read maps, yet know when to begin, when to pause, when to arrive. And all of them, in some small way, are listening to the moon. Perhaps that's what we need to relearn, not how to calculate, but how to notice, not how to dominate nature's rhythm, but how to rejoin it. There is direction even in uncertainty. There is north even in the dark. And sometimes all it takes to find it is to look up, because the moon is still there, still gliding across the sky in silence, still shaping tides and time and tender arrivals, still whispering north to those willing to listen. And whether you are walking, flying, swimming, or simply waiting for a sign, you are not lost. You are not alone. You are simply between moments of knowing. And in that space the moon waits, its light curved gently toward your path, offering guidance without demand, presence without pressure. A silver breath in the sky, a steady glow, a quiet compass. That is the moon, and it still speaks softly to all things that move. High above the fields and forests, above the tallest towers and mountains, the sky moves in slow, invisible streams. These are not the roaring winds we feel in storms or the breezes that lift kites. These are silent pathways, long, smooth rivers of air that flow across the planet, shaping everything they touch without ever being seen. Birds ride them, seeds drift on them, insects rise into them and vanish like thoughts. These currents are not just weather, they are highways in the sky. They are memory, motion, and mystery all at once. When we look up, the sky seems empty, but it is not. At any given moment, the air above us is layered like a great moving ocean. There are winds close to the ground that tug at grass and scatter leaves. Higher still, the air becomes colder and faster. And far above that, miles high, are narrow bands of wind called jet streams. They move faster than any creature can fly, and yet some creatures find their way into them and use them as if they were born to do so. One such traveller is the painted lady butterfly. Each year, these delicate insects journey thousands of kilometres from Africa to Europe and back, crossing deserts, seas and continents. Their wings are thin, their bodies small, but they rise higher than birds, climbing into the invisible rivers of air. There the wind carries them, sometimes faster than they could ever fly on their own. How do they know where to go? How do they find these winds? They feel them. They sense the pressure in the air, the direction of the breeze, the warmth of the current. Some scientists believe they may even use light and magnetic cues to decide when to rise and when to stay close to Earth. Their flight is not planned in the way we plan journeys. It is felt, chosen through instinct and the reading of subtle signs in the world around them. When the moment comes, they lift, and the wind answers. And these butterflies are not alone. Dragonflies too ride high currents. Some species migrate across oceans, tracing paths from India to Africa and back. Their wings catch not just the wind, but the shape of the sky. They turn with it, glide with it, becoming part of its flow. These migrations are not noisy or visible to us. We don't see clouds of insects streaming through the sky, but they are there, sometimes in the millions, passing overhead in silence. Birds have long known this secret. Swifts, hawks and geese all climb into higher altitudes to find smoother, faster air. Some fly so high that their bodies must change, hearts beating slower, blood holding more oxygen, wings adjusting their tilt to keep steady in the thinner air. They do not fight the wind, they work with it. They let it carry them. And there is wonder in that. A creature no heavier than a leaf can catch a ride on a river that never rests. A moth can cross a continent without knowing the name of the land below. A seed can float on the breeze and land where it will grow. These movements are not random. They are guided, not by sight but by sensing, not by reason but by response. The Earth, after all, is always breathing. Warm air rises at the equator, cools at the poles, spins with the rotation of the planet, and forms great circular paths. These create jet streams, ribbons of fast air that snake through the upper atmosphere. They shape the weather, yes, but they also shape life. A shift in the stream can mean a longer drought. A faster wind can bring insects to bloom earlier. These invisible rivers carry not just air, but change, and yet we rarely notice them. We feel their echoes in the turn of a storm, the delay of a flight, the coolness in a morning breeze, but the streams themselves are above us, unreachable, except somehow to the creatures who need them most, the ones without engines, the ones with wings and trust. When a monarch butterfly begins its journey across North America, it doesn't know how far it must go. It has never made the journey before, and yet it flies, and as it does, it climbs. When the wind is right, it lifts higher. It doesn't rush, it rides, and the wind, for its part, makes no promise, only motion. And yet the two align, butterfly and breeze, traveller and current. It is not control, it is cooperation. There are moments when this becomes visible. Sometimes after rain, columns of insects rise from fields spiralling upward. They are drawn by warmth, by moisture, by something beyond known names. And once they reach the right height, they drift. They disappear into the sky, carried on a wind you cannot see, going to places they could never reach on their own. We speak often of the power of flight, but perhaps its true power is not in escape or speed or strength. Perhaps it is in surrender, in lifting your wings to something larger than yourself, in reading the invisible and following it without fear. This is what the insects do, this is what birds do, this is what the wind allows. These rivers of air never stop. They move from west to east, high above our heads, bending with mountains, shifting with heat. They are not stable, they are not predictable, but they are real, and those who ride them learn to feel when to rise and when to wait. Their compass is not a needle, it is the air itself. So the next time you see a butterfly in your garden or a bird climbing high into the sky, pause. Know that they may be heading somewhere distant, that above you, hidden in the quiet blue, there are pathways only they can sense. There is direction even in the wind, there is travel even without roads, and there is purpose even in the flutter of the smallest wing. Let us drift higher now into those unseen rivers of wind that wrap the world. Their presence is subtle, but their influence is vast. Where the sky seems calm, they move with force. Where we think of stillness, they carry travellers from one edge of the world to another. And within these currents there are quiet passengers, small, delicate, determined. Insects that weigh less than a raindrop, yet ride the jet streams for hundreds, sometimes thousands of kilometres. These journeys are not noisy or fast. They are silent, continuous, and deeply connected to the pulse of the planet. Consider the humble aphid, often ignored in the world of grand migrations. When population pressure rises and the host plant weakens, some aphids are born with wings. They rise into the air and catch the breeze, not just a breeze near the ground, but a wind high enough to carry them far away. They do not flap their wings to escape. They ascend, let go, and are taken. Within hours they may land in a distant field, one they've never seen, one perfectly suited for starting again. This kind of journey is not guided by the memory. It is guided by responsiveness, an ability to read the microsignals in pressure, humidity, and heat. The aphid does not know it is travelling across counties or countries. It only knows the time has come to lift, and the wind will do the rest. Locusts do this too, but at an astonishing scale. Swarms numbering in the billions have been observed riding high-altitude currents, forming plumes that stretch for miles. From space they resemble smoke. On the ground they darken the sun, but in the air they are particles carried on the jet stream, as if the sky itself had gathered them for some ancient purpose. What's remarkable is not just the distance they travel, but the coordination. How do they not scatter? How do they stay together, rising in waves and banks, turning at once? The answer lies in their sensitivity, not to sound or speech or command, but to each other, and to the movement of the air. They adjust constantly, wings and bodies fine-tuned to the pulse around them. They are like murmurs in a language spoken by the wind. But not all sky travellers are part of a swarm. Some, like ballooning spiders, rise alone. These tiny arachnids climb to a high perch, raise their silk into the breeze, and then let go. Caught by currents, they drift, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for days, landing in a place they've never seen. It's called ballooning, and though it seems whimsical, it is survival. The spider does not fly. It trusts. And somewhere between instinct and wind, direction is found. We don't often think of the atmosphere as alive, but it behaves like something living, circulating warmth, distributing water, stirring movement across continents. These invisible rivers do not stay still. They shift with the seasons, responding to solar heat, the tilt of the earth, the breathing of oceans below. A drought in Africa may be the result of a wind pattern that began in the Pacific. A flood in Asia might trace its roots to the polar jet stream bending just a little too far south. And so these creatures, who rise into that air, are not simply travellers. They are participants in a system larger than themselves. They are part of a conversation between earth and sky, a dialogue carried on in thermals and eddies. They do not lead the wind, but they respond to it with precision. They follow. Birds too make choices shaped by these streams. Take the bar-tailed godwit, a shorebird known to fly from Alaska to New Zealand in a single non-stop flight, over 11,000 kilometres in just over a week. It does not pause, it does not feed, it simply flies. And part of what makes this possible is the careful timing of departure. The godwit waits for the winds to shift, tailwinds rising behind it steady and kind, and then it goes. Not in haste, but in harmony. These long flights are not acts of dominance over nature. They are acts of listening. The birds do not conquer the air, they belong to it. They rise into it not with force, but with trust. Their feathers adjust to pressure, their bodies adapt to cold, their hearts slow when needed, and through all of it they ride, not pushing, not pulling, but being carried. Some scientists now believe that birds and insects can even feel soundless vibrations in the atmosphere, signals we cannot detect. They sense when the air is right for flight, not just in the moment, but hours before the shift arrives. It's a kind of premonition, but not mystical. It is biological memory, a language of air pressure and density, subtle and constant. And these rivers of air are not static. Climate change is altering them. Jet streams are weakening, shifting their paths. Some regions experience sudden freezes where warmth should be, or lingering droughts where rains once came. The sky's invisible rivers have become tangled, and those who travel in them, birds, insects, seeds, must now adapt to a map that keeps redrawing itself. Yet still, the travellers rise. Monarch butterflies return to forests in Mexico despite the changing winds. Arctic terns still circle the globe. Dragonflies return to the same wetlands, even if their journey takes generations. It is not blind following, it is deep sensing. A skill that lives not in thought, but in flesh. There is something humbling in this. With all our tools and machines, we often forget how much life moves by feel. How many creatures survive not by planning, but by tuning themselves to the world. A moth, lifted by the evening heat. A seed, scattered by spring wind. A bird hesitating on a branch, waiting for a signal only it can hear. These rivers of air hold no borders. They belong to no country, they ask no permission. And yet they carry life across every corner of the earth. Above cities, over deserts, across oceans. They move silently always, and those who know how to enter them are never truly lost. They do not force direction, they feel it. So if you ever stand beneath an open sky and feel a breeze on your skin, think of it as more than air. Think of it as a pathway, a story, a slow-moving guide that has carried wings and whispers, dust and dreams, farther than you can see. Above you, something ancient is moving, and somewhere within it, something small is rising to meet it. Let us return now to those silent lanes above us, the rivers of air that never sleep. They are always moving, reshaping the sky with every turn, and within them, the smallest travellers drift, rise, and find new places to begin. In this final part of their story, we listen not just to their motion, but to what it teaches us, about trust, about change, and about the quiet intelligence of adaptation. There are no signs posted in the sky, no arrows pointing the way, no warnings of turbulence or stillness. Yet creatures know, not by thinking but by sensing. A young bird, not yet fully grown, may lift its wings one morning and take flight across a sea it has never seen. A dragonfly born beside a quiet pond may one day rise into the wind and vanish from the place it hatched. And seeds, silent, passive, waiting, may ride gusts across mountains, only to land and sprout in cracks where they should not survive, but somehow do. These journeys are not only impressive for their scale, they are remarkable for their subtlety. They do not depend on dominance or brute force or speed. They rely on timing, on patience, on softness. Each traveller waits for the right moment, the warmth in the air, the tilt of a current, the gentleness of a breeze, and then they lift. Not to control the sky, but to be part of it. Some of these movements happen not just between seasons, but within them. Every morning the sun warms the earth unevenly. Hills heat faster than valleys, and this creates thermals, rising columns of air that hawks and storks use to climb without flapping. They rise slowly in circles lifted by warmth. They wait higher and higher until the thermals level off, and then they glide, conserving energy, crossing great distances with almost no effort. This is not laziness, it is wisdom. These birds have learned, through evolution, through experience, that working with the wind is always better than working against it. They do not race the air, they ride it. And not all riders are born equal. Some insects are so light that even a change in humidity can lift them. Some birds are so adapted to flight that their sleep becomes a rhythm tied to motion. They nap mid-air, one hemisphere of the brain at rest, the other awake to steer. Even when the eyes close, the body still listens, still feels, still follows. What makes this possible is not a special kind of intelligence in the way we usually define it. It is a different kind, a wisdom of timing and tuning, of trust and sensing. The body is the compass, the world is the map, the wind is the road. And everything depends on when you choose to rise. Some migrations take generations to complete. A butterfly may leave a field in spring and its descendant 3 or 4 lifetimes later will return to that same field by autumn. The knowledge is not passed down through teaching but through DNA. The memory of direction, of wind, of when to move is stored in every cell. It's not remembered, it's inherited. And in this, we see how time itself flows like wind, from one life into another. We often marvel at how birds navigate. Some species use the sun during the day, the stars at night, and the magnetic field always. But what's often missed is how they balance these tools. When clouds cover the sun, they shift to scent. When darkness falls, they shift to the stars. When the stars are lost to urban light, they adjust to the horizon. Their flexibility is their strength, not stubbornness but responsiveness. Not sticking to a plan but feeling when the plan must change. In a world that grows louder, hotter, more chaotic, this way of travelling becomes a quiet lesson. Not every path is visible, not every journey is linear. Sometimes the road is made of air and trust. Sometimes the wind that seems to push us off course is the one we need to rise. We have built machines to mimic this grace, gliders that catch thermals, drones that hover and tilt, but no invention yet has matched the elegance of a feather lifted by the right breeze, or a dandelion seed twirling into sky. These are not mechanical feats, they are expressions of belonging. To ride the wind is not to escape gravity, it is to cooperate with it. Even the air we breathe has been moved by these rivers, carried from durias to forests, from oceans to mountains. Dust from the Sahara feeds trees in the Amazon. Spores drift across hemispheres. Everything is connected by these unseen flows. The sky is not a barrier, it is a bridge. And so when we walk through stillness, we may not realize the motion above us, but it is there. Always, carrying songbirds to new lands, carrying whispers of pollen and salt, carrying the breath of the world from one shore to another. And high in that quiet movement, the travellers continue, those with wings, those with silk, those with nothing but a shell and a sense that now is the time to go. Not all will arrive, some will be caught in the wrong stream, some will fall, some will rest too soon, but the attempt itself is a kind of beauty. To trust the wind enough to rise, to listen to the air without needing words, to go where you are carried, and to find in that motion not fear but possibility. This is what the rivers of air teach us, that the world is full of direction even when it cannot be seen, that movement does not always need force, that sometimes the most powerful choice is to wait, and then, when the wind is right, to lift and let go. Above you those rivers still flow, quiet, constant, full of motion. Somewhere a feather is turning, somewhere a moth is rising, somewhere a small, fragile traveller is being carried farther than it ever imagined. And in that soft flight, in that surrender to the sky, there is something deeply, endlessly true. Far beneath feathers and fur, scales and skin, there are stars. Not the burning kind that light the night sky, but pieces of them, fragments from long ago, scattered across space and gathered into bodies. When you touch your hand to your chest or feel the quiet beat of a bird's wing, you are touching what was once inside a star. And in some creatures, this ancient connection to the cosmos is more than poetic, it is practical. For some, the stars are not just above, they are within, guiding every step they take. Many migrating animals possess a secret sense, an ability to detect the Earth's magnetic field. To them, north is not just a direction, but a feeling. This internal compass doesn't need sunlight, doesn't fade with the clouds. It hums beneath the surface, silent and reliable. And at the centre of this ability, scientists believe, are particles, microscopic crystals of iron, tucked deep in cells, sensitive to the planet's pull. These crystals, called magnetite, are forged not in the Earth, but in stars that lived long before us. When a massive star dies, it explodes. In that instant, heavier elements, iron, nickel, cobalt, are born. They scatter through the universe, floating for millions of years until gravity pulls them into a newborn planet. From there they enter soil, water, bodies, and so, somewhere deep in the tissues of a sea turtle or a robin, or a monarch butterfly, a piece of star still pulses, aligning ever so slightly with the Earth's magnetic field. It doesn't shine, it doesn't glow, but it points. We call this magnetoreception. It is one of the most mysterious senses known to science. Birds that migrate thousands of miles seem to feel the magnetic lines that wrap the planet, like invisible threads in the sky. When clouds cover the sun and the stars are hidden, they still fly straight. When placed in darkness, they still know which way is home. Something beneath their skin is listening. Scientists have long tried to understand how. In robins, there are special cells in the eyes that may allow them to see magnetic fields, not as lines or arrows, but perhaps as shifting patterns of light and shadow, an overlay on the world that tells them where to go. In other animals, like mole rats and trout, magnetite particles may respond to changes in the field, sending tiny electrical signals to the brain. These signals are not loud, they don't rise to thought, but they are enough. It's as if the body carries a map written in gravity and light, and though the animal may not know it reads this map, it follows it with every step, every flap, every glide. This sense is not limited to birds. Lobsters crawl along magnetic gradients on the ocean floor, returning to the same patch of reef year after year. Sea turtles, released into vast oceans, circle back to the very beach where they hatched. Even some bacteria, simple single-celled beings, align themselves with magnetic fields, drifting through water toward the perfect balance of oxygen and light. And in all of them there is no doubt, no hesitation, just movement. Steady, quiet, certain. Perhaps what's most remarkable is that this sense requires no sound, no sight, no language. It is not broadcast through the air. It is not something you can see. The Earth's magnetic field is gentle, subtle, wrapping the planet like a blanket of direction. And still it guides millions of migrations each year. In the night sky we look to Polaris to find north, but the robin does not. It does not need the stars above, because it carries the stars within. It flies not by sight, but by feel. It is as if the earth itself speaks in a voice too low for us to hear, and some creatures are born tuned to that voice. They do not ask where to go, they simply go. Even when moved across continents or turned in circles, some animals reset, realign, and return to the path. They are not confused. Their compass is not fragile, it is elemental, built not from thoughts or maps, but from particles older than the earth itself. And while we may marvel at their journeys, the truth is even more poetic than it appears. These creatures are not just finding their way. They are being led by something ancient, something cosmic. They are pulled by a force that began in the heart of stars, carried through space, folded into cells. Their skin does not shine like starlight, but somewhere within it, a sliver of that light remains. So the next time you see a swallow carving loops in the sky, or a sea turtle disappearing into waves, remember, they are not guessing. They are following. Not the light above, but the quiet magnetism of the planet. A song of direction whispered in iron and stardust, humming beneath their wings and bones. In a world full of noise, they move by something silent. In a world full of signs, they follow something unseen. Theirs is not a journey of questions, but of knowing. Not because they were taught, but because their bodies remember the way. Let's drift deeper into this quiet sense, this invisible pull that guides without noise or sight. It is easy to overlook what we cannot see. But in the world of living things, some of the most powerful forces are the most silent. The Earth's magnetic field stretches from pole to pole, a gentle current of direction flowing around and through everything. And though it hums below the surface, though it never touches the skin, it shapes the paths of birds, fish, mammals, and insects as surely as rivers carve through stone. In the case of the loggerhead sea turtle, the magnetic field is not only a guide, it is a memory. From the moment the turtle hatches, it is imprinted with the magnetic signature of the beach where it was born. The Earth's field is not uniform. It shifts in strength and angle depending on location, like a fingerprint written in invisible ink. The hatchling feels it. It carries that pattern in its nervous system as it swims out into the vast ocean, into years of wandering, and then, somehow, impossibly, it finds its way back, not by sight, not by scent, but by the same invisible map it felt the night it first touched sand. Experiments have shown that when young turtles are placed in tanks surrounded by artificial magnetic fields, they swim in the direction they would go if they were really in the part of the ocean those fields represent. They are not seeing maps, they are feeling them. With every cell, with every turn of their small bodies, they align themselves to a force most of us ignore. And turtles are not alone. Homing pigeons, long used by humans for messages and races, possess magnetic sensors so precise that they can return to a specific loft hundreds of miles away, even when released in unfamiliar territory, even when blindfolded. Their beaks contain tissue that may hold magnetite, and their brains respond to shifts in the magnetic field. Some researchers believe they create an internal map layered with magnetic landmarks, updated as they fly, refined through experience. This idea of an internal map is powerful. It suggests not just direction, but memory, not just reaction, but recognition. The body stores patterns, not in words, but in sensation. a certain pull in the earth beneath the wings, a shift in angle, a sense of arrival without needing to see the destination. In Europe, researchers have studied red foxes hunting in snowy fields. They often pounce in a consistent northeast direction, especially when the hunt is successful. Some believe they may be using the Earth's magnetic field to estimate the distance and depth of prey hidden beneath the snow. The fox doesn't think north, but it feels it, and in that feeling it aligns its action. Even cattle and deer have been observed standing in alignment with the magnetic field, while grazing or resting. They do not need to. No threat demands it, no instinct cries out for order, and yet their bodies seem to settle into a pattern older than language. A comfort in alignment, a stillness that comes from facing the right way. In the deep ocean where sunlight never reaches, certain fish, like salmon and eels, migrate with astonishing accuracy. From rivers to sea and back again, across thousands of kilometers, they too respond to magnetic cues. In one study, juvenile salmon placed in tanks with altered magnetic fields changed direction to match where they believed they were. The Earth's field is not just a compass to them, it's a roadmap, a story written in force. And perhaps most hauntingly, some animals feel the Earth's field not as a tool, but as a presence. There is a kind of companionship in the way it guides, not an order, but a suggestion. A low hum, always there, like the warmth of the sun or the rhythm of breath. It does not command, it allows. Magnetoreception, like many subtle senses, blurs the boundary between perception and instinct. It is not separate from the body, it is part of it, woven into nerves, whispered through molecules, shaped by the way iron moves through blood and tissue. It is not supernatural, but it feels like a kind of magic because it connects us, not just to place, but to origin. The iron in your blood is not from this world. It came from the stars. That same iron, in different form, aligns within a robin's eye, turning ever so slightly when the bird tilts its head. In some birds, there is evidence that they must turn their heads from side to side to properly sense the field, as if sweeping it across their vision like a gentle radar. What they see is unknown. It may not be an image at all, it may be a brightness or a darkness or a soft shimmer that tells them, this is the way. We might think this is irrelevant to us, that we, with our machines and maps, no longer need such instincts. But we too are made of the same materials. We carry iron in our blood, a magnetic molecule called hemoglobin that binds with oxygen and lets us breathe. The field still touches us. It flows through us. We may not feel it the way a turtle does, but once perhaps we did. In studies of brain activity, humans exposed to changing magnetic fields show shifts in neural waves, subtle, subconscious, but measurable. We may no longer use the sense, but something inside still recognizes the pull. And maybe that's the lesson the animals are teaching, not how to find a place on a map, but how to listen, how to notice when the body leans one way instead of another, how to feel when stillness feels wrong and movement feels right, how to trust the tug even if you cannot explain it, because sometimes the most powerful directions are the ones you do not choose. They rise in you like a current, gentle but steady. They do not ask, they only suggest. And when you follow, you find that you arrive, perhaps not where you expected, but where you were meant to go. The robin does not argue with the field. The turtle does not doubt the beach it remembers. The fox does not ask why it faces northeast. They feel, they follow, and in that quiet alignment, they live lives of astonishing precision, guided not by sight or sound or word, but by the stars beneath their skin. Now let us rest in the final part of this quiet journey, not through wind or wing, but through the inner compass of life itself. It is easy to forget that beneath every feathered flight and crawling return is something older than memory, a gentle force that calls things home. The animals who follow it do not ask for maps, they do not speak of navigation, they simply feel the direction in their bones. And what they follow is not just Earth's magnetic field, it is the soft echo of stars that once burned far away and long ago. The particles that respond to the Earth's magnetism are not inventions of Earth. They are gifts of the cosmos, born in the belly of ancient stars that collapsed and scattered their ashes across galaxies. Among those ashes, iron. And that iron, drawn together by gravity and time, became part of this planet, and eventually part of life. So when a whale senses the pull of north, or a salmon begins its way back upstream, it is not merely responding to the present, it is remembering the stars. It is aligning with something it has always known. Even creatures that never migrate carry some relationship to the magnetic field. Bees, for instance, use it to orient themselves when foraging. In controlled experiments, bees exposed to magnetic disruption struggle to return to their hive. They feel the shift, they lose their way, their wings still work, the flowers still bloom, but something in the pattern has been broken, and their map fades. And bats, those silent flyers of twilight, also appear to use the magnetic field to set their internal compass. Before beginning migration, some species calibrate their sense of direction by watching the setting sun and pairing that angle with the Earth's magnetic direction. It is not either or, it is both. They cross-reference the world like cartographers, using sky and Earth in tandem, aligning body with environment in a way both simple and profound. But it is not only animals that carry this magnetic awareness. In the smallest organisms, the oldest lives, it persists. Magnetotactic bacteria living in mud and sediment build chains of magnetic crystals inside their bodies. These chains help them swim in straight lines along magnetic gradients, navigating toward the precise mix of light and oxygen they need to thrive. They do not think, they do not decide, but their movement is precise, purposeful, and tuned to the same field that guides the robin's wings and the turtle's return. This sense, this magnetoreception, is not loud. It does not rise to consciousness. It is not a voice that says go north. It is a tilt, a tendency, a comfort in alignment, a restlessness when turned. It is a feeling of rightness or wrongness that lives beneath language. And for the animals who use it, it is not superstition, it is not belief, it is biology. Evolution has woven it into cells and structures, tested it over millennia, refined it through trial and error until it became as natural as breath. A salmon that does not respond to the Earth's field does not find its river. A turtle that forgets the magnetic imprint of its beach may circle the sea without ever arriving. Direction for them is not a luxury, it is life. But this map of magnetism, like any map, can shift. The Earth's magnetic poles are not fixed. They wander. They flip sometimes over great spans of time. What then happens to those who follow them? Do they lose their way? Do they recalibrate? The truth is, we do not know, but nature often adapts quietly, slowly. As the field shifts, so too may the instincts. Perhaps each generation adjusts just a little, a few degrees at a time, until the new direction becomes the new truth. It is not that the compass breaks, it evolves. And in this, there is a deep kind of hope that even when the world changes beneath us, life listens, life responds. The turtle does not give up the sea, the bird does not forget to fly, they learn silently how to trust again. We live in a time of noise, constant, bright, rushing noise. Direction comes to us in flashing signals, shouted instructions, artificial lights. And yet, beneath all of it, the earth still hums, the field still flows, the sky still curves gently over the land, and the ground still pulls with that ancient whisper, this way. We may not feel it as clearly as a robin or a mole rat, but somewhere within us the same iron turns, the same ancient atoms align. The stars that gave us our blood are the same that guide the wings of birds, and though we do not always listen, we are never truly separate. So when you feel lost, not in distance but in self, remember that direction is not always a matter of sight. Sometimes it's a matter of stillness, of listening for the pull you cannot name, of knowing that deep beneath your thoughts, something older than language still leans toward home. Look to the sky if you must, but do not forget to look within, because inside you, quiet, patient, unchanged, there may still be a compass, a trace of light from a star long gone, a signal written in the iron of your blood. And though you may not hear it, though you may never see it, it is there, not to instruct, not to demand, just to remind you, you are part of this earth, and it still knows the way. In the quiet folds of the forest, long after the last daylight has faded and shadows have settled into their stillness, tiny lights begin to bloom. Not flames, not reflections, but lives, small glowing beings that carry their own brightness through the night. Fireflies, or lightning bugs as some call them, blink softly in the dark. Their light is not just beautiful, it is a message, a code, a story written in flashes and timing. In a world where darkness once ruled the night, these creatures became lanterns, not just to each other, but to the world around them. To us, light is usually tied to heat, flames that burn, bulbs that glow warm with electricity. But fireflies are different. Their light is cold. It comes from a chemical reaction that happens inside their bodies, deep within special cells in their lower abdomen. The process is called bioluminescence. It's gentle, efficient, near perfect. Almost all the energy goes into light, and almost none into heat. They do not burn to shine, they simply glow. Inside each firefly's lantern are 3 key ingredients: luciferin, a molecule that produces light; luciferase, an enzyme that triggers the reaction; and oxygen. When these come together, the firefly lights up, often in a short time pulse. That pulse is not random, it is part of a language. Different species have different rhythms. Some blink in slow intervals, others in fast, bright flashes. Some hover and flicker, some rise and dip like sparks floating on a summer breeze. And the purpose of all this light? Communication. Fireflies flash to find one another. Males fly through the air, blinking in their species' unique pattern. Females, usually resting in the grass or perched on a low plant, respond if they recognize the pattern. A conversation begins, silent, rhythmic, and deeply precise. If the light is right, if the timing is true, the two will meet. In the stillness of the night, they find each other by glow alone. But this language is not only for love. Some fireflies mimic the signals of other species, not to mate, but to lure and eat them. These predators flash a false reply, and when the male arrives expecting connection, he finds danger instead. Even light, it seems, can be used in deception. And still, the conversation continues, species after species, night after night, flashing stories into the dark. Fireflies are not alone in their glow. Across the oceans, in the black depths where sunlight never reaches, countless creatures light their own way. Some are tiny plankton that glow blue when stirred, turning waves into stars. Others are anglerfish, lurking with a single glowing lure that hangs before their teeth. Deep-sea squid, jellyfish, lanternfish, all part of a world where light is not reflected, but created. Not borrowed, but born. In these places, bioluminescence becomes not just a tool, but a survival strategy. In the absence of sunlight, organisms evolve their own kind of vision. They use light to distract, to hunt, to escape, to warn. Some squid, when threatened, eject glowing clouds instead of ink, phantoms of themselves, shimmering decoys in the dark. Others flash brightly in sudden bursts, stunning predators for just long enough to slip away. Even on land, light appears where we least expect it. Some fungi glow faintly in decaying wood, drawing insects to help spread their spores. Some millipedes and beetles carry soft glows in bands along their bodies, possibly as a warning. It is not light to see by, it is light to be known. This idea, that light can come from life, is old. Long before electric lamps, humans watched the forests and waters glow. Aristotle wrote of fish that sparkled when caught. Pliny the Elder told of meat that shone in the dark. Sailors in tropical seas reported blue wakes trailing behind their ships, and children chased fireflies through fields without ever knowing the names of the chemicals involved. And yet, for all the poetry, the science of bioluminescence is practical, elegant, and efficient. It requires precise conditions, careful chemistry, and just the right structure in the body to control it. Fireflies, for instance, regulate the oxygen in their lanterns to turn the light on and off. No wires, no fuel, just breath and reaction, and with that they write signals into the air. What makes this all the more remarkable is that the light doesn't travel far. A firefly's flash is not meant to light the world. It is meant to be seen by a few, in the right place at the right time, a personal message in a crowded night, a tiny beacon for one other being who knows how to read it. And so, when you see a flicker in the grass, a blink in the branches, remember, it is not just a random glimmer. It is intention. It is accession. That flash may be a call, or an answer, or a warning, or a decoy, maybe hope, or hunger, or instinct. But it is never meaningless. In the natural world, light is often a whisper, a quiet sign in the dark. and those who carry it do so not for decoration but for survival, for connection, for recognition. They are not trying to be seen by everyone, just by the right one. So let yourself wonder, as you walk through a summer night and the fireflies begin to rise, what messages are being sent? What rhythms are unfolding just out of reach? And how many lights are speaking softly in languages you were never taught? These are not accidents. These are not tricks. These are lanterns in the dark, living answers to the question of how to be known, even when the night is deep and the silence long. Let's follow the light deeper now, not the kind that blinds or burns, but the gentle gleam that pulses like a heartbeat in the dark. Bioluminescence, as soft as it seems, is not rare. It glows in every ocean, flickers across forests, and hides in damp wood and mossy caves. Nearly 80% of deep-sea animals produce light in some form. It is not decoration, it is language, it is defense, it is attraction. And in its own quiet way, it has shaped entire ecosystems in places where the sun has never shone. In the deepest parts of the sea, where pressure crushes and light cannot reach, creatures make their own stars. Here, glowing patterns act like fingerprints. Some fish flash spots along their bodies to identify their own species. Others have lights under their eyes to illuminate prey. Certain jellyfish respond to touch with a radiant pulse that travels across their entire bell. An underwater signal flare, both beautiful and terrifying. This is the language of survival. When a predator comes near, the light might startle it, or confuse it, or warn it away. Some animals produce flashes that attract even larger predators, drawing them in to attack the threat, buying a few precious moments to escape. In this way, light becomes a kind of strategy, not violence, not speed, but deception through glow, a carefully timed flicker that might mean life or death. And some lights are never meant to be seen from afar. The cookie-cutter shark, for instance, uses bioluminescence to blend into the light above, hiding itself from below. Only a small patch near its jaw remains dark, mimicking the silhouette of a small fish. When another predator approaches, curious, the shark strikes. It is camouflage, perfected through light. Meanwhile, in shallow waters, tiny plankton known as dinoflagellates glow blue when disturbed. A wave, a swimming fish, even a human hand can trigger the light. These flashes are not just beauty, they're alarm signals. A moving predator glows as it swims, exposing itself to bigger hunters. The light isn't to escape, it's to reveal. It says, something dangerous is here. These messages, warnings, mimicry, invitations are all silent, but they're as rich in meaning as any sound, and they can be shaped. In fireflies, the pattern of a flash matters as much as the light itself. Some species use a double flash, some spiral upward as they glow, some light up in a group, synchronizing so perfectly that an entire tree blinks on and off in unison. This is not chance, this is precision evolved through generations, sharpened by need and honed by timing. And yet, for all its utility, bioluminescence also has an eerie, haunting beauty. A beauty that invites us to wonder, to imagine what it means to be lit from within, to move through darkness with your own light, to not reflect what others cast on you, but to shine with something made entirely from your own body. In some caves in New Zealand, glowworms hang from ceilings, spinning sticky threads that catch insects. They glow to lure, their soft light mistaken for moonlight filtering in. The insect flies toward what feels like escape and finds itself caught. The glowworm waits, still and silent in its upside-down trap. It does not hunt. It simply shines and waits. This stillness, this patience, is echoed across species. Light becomes a lure, but also a pause, a moment of attention in the dark. Creatures stop to look, to follow, to respond. Bioluminescence is not urgent, it is subtle, timed, measured, and in places where light is rare, it becomes sacred. Some indigenous cultures speak of waters that shimmer when paddled, of spirits dancing in waves, of stars caught in rivers. Before the science, there was reverence. A knowing that this light was different, not sun, not flame, but something gentler, something alive. Even today, when tourists visit bioluminescent bays, like Mosquito Bay in Puerto Rico or Luminous Lagoon in Jamaica, they fall silent when the water begins to glow. The light clings to paddles, to fingertips, to the curve of a wave. It does not burn. It surrounds. It makes you part of the story. This glow reminds us that light does not always arrive in bursts or beams. Sometimes it creeps in through skin, sometimes it whispers, and when it does, it changes how we move. We slow down, we watch more carefully, we feel wonder in places we thought were empty. But this wonder is delicate. In many places, fireflies are disappearing, not because the chemistry has changed, but because their environment has. Light pollution from cities drowns out their signals. Without true darkness, they cannot speak. They cannot find each other. They blink and no one answers. Their language disappears into the glow of street lamps and headlights, and so protecting darkness becomes a kind of preservation, not of emptiness, but of conversation. When we allow the night to return, we allow the messages of the living world to unfold again. We make room for the lights that live inside the silence. There is something deeply moving about this, about the idea that light is not always added from the outside, that sometimes it comes from within, that sometimes the answer to the dark is not more brightness, but the right kind of glow, a quiet one, a natural one, a light that speaks instead of shouts. So when you walk beneath trees on a summer night, or look into a still lake at dusk, or find yourself in the hush between day and sleep, pause. Let your eyes adjust. Let your ears quiet. There may be a message waiting, a glow rising in the grass, a flash winding through the branches, a pulse in the water. They do not last long, but while they do, they tell a story of beings who do not need the sun to shine, who carry their own lanterns into the world, who speak without sound, and who trust that someone, somewhere is listening. Let us return now one last time to the flicker and shimmer of living light. In the quiet hours when most of the world closes its eyes, some beings awaken, not to chase or flee, but to glow, to speak in pulses, to find each other by brightness born from within. It is a language we cannot hear, but it is spoken longer than we have listened. And even now, in an age of artificial brilliance, these gentle lanterns still shine in the places where night remains. The firefly, that small and patient carrier of light, does not need the sun. It does not borrow from stars. It makes its own glow, tucked beneath its wings, waiting for dusk to fall. Its flash is not a floodlight. It's a signal, meant not for crowds, but for one. A mate, a reply, a recognition. It takes its place among grasses, among trees, among billions of other lives, and offers its tiny spark. And even in this simple act there is timing. Each flash is measured, each pause intentional. Some species blink once, then wait. Others repeat. Some respond to calls from the air, matching rhythms until the two find each other in the dark. It is not chance. It is choreography, a ballet of light performed without stage, without script. This same grace exists beneath the sea. Where sunlight ends, bioluminescence begins. Deep-sea jellyfish curl and bloom, painting soft spirals in the water. Lanternfish scatter light from their sides. Even predators, like the hatchetfish, wear glowing panels that mimic the light from above, erasing their shadows and helping them vanish from view. In a world without dawn or dusk, light becomes shape, identity, protection. And in this world, every flicker has meaning. A squid's burst may be a cry for help, a shrimp's flash may warn of danger. Some creatures emit light in waves, rolling through the blackness like laughter, each curve of brightness a breath in an otherwise silent place. It is not the kind of light we are used to. It is not for vision. It is for knowing. Humans too have long been drawn to these silent illuminations, not just for their glow, but for what they represent. Life that persists in darkness, expression without sound, beauty that requires patience. In caves and forests, on beaches and boats, we have gathered in awe of these small persistent flames. And though we now understand the chemistry, the enzymes, the oxygen, the molecules that shimmer, something about it still feels like wonder, still resists being reduced to explanation. Because even when you know how it works, the moment still holds its magic. The way the light hangs in the air, then vanishes. The way it returns. The way it seems to speak, softly, to the part of you that remembers how to listen. But like many fragile wonders, bioluminescence is fading. Fireflies in particular are declining. Their homes are disappearing. Their nights are no longer dark. Their quiet signals are drowned by a world too bright, too fast. They blink again and again into a silence that does not answer. And though their chemistry still works, their purpose begins to dim. And so we find ourselves at a threshold, not just of science, but of care. To protect these lights, we must protect what they need. Darkness, slowness, stillness. The habitats where grass grows wild, the ponds untouched by glare. The spaces where one flicker can still be seen by another across a small distance in the middle of a waiting night. Because that is what this light is for, not to overpower, but to reach, not to illuminate everything, but to be noticed by one other. It is the light of connection, not of conquest, the opposite of floodlights and headlights and stadium beams. It is intimacy written in glow. And in that it offers us a lesson, that light need not be large to be meaningful, that brightness need not be constant to be seen, that sometimes what matters most is not the strength of the shine, but the timing, the presence, the quiet promise that someone else is out there, looking too. What would happen if we lived more like the firefly? If we let our signals be small but true? If we trusted that the right ones would see them? What would it mean to glow, not to be noticed by all, but to find one who understands? What would it feel like to walk through a world where light was not everywhere, but enough? The creatures of the night remind us that it's possible, that even in the darkest places, life finds a way to speak, not in words, not in noise, but in pulses, in rhythm, in breath. A light, then silence, a reply, then stillness, a waiting, then a match. This is not a fairy tale. This is biology. This is real. It lives in forests and oceans and the small, forgotten corners of our world. It is the story of beings who carry their own lanterns, who risk showing themselves not to be loud but to be found. So the next time you step outside and night has fallen, look not for the brightest star. Look for the softest glow, a single flash in the grass, a ripple of blue in the sea, a glimmer on a log in the woods. Let your eyes adjust. Let your mind quiet. You may not hear it, but something is calling, a light just for now, just for here, just for those who are willing to wait and see and believe that even in the deepest dark, life still shines. In the hush between one gust and the next, there is a story unfolding in the air, told not with words but with wings. Not all wings are made to soar. Some flutter, some hum, some beat so quickly they blur into invisibility. And yet every movement carries meaning. Every tilt and turn, every pause mid-flight, every slow glide down to earth is part of a language older than voice. To understand it, you do not listen, you watch. Because for many creatures, especially those that fly, the body itself becomes the message. And in that message is survival, connection, and something surprisingly close to communication. Birds have long used their wings not just to move, but to speak. The broad sweep of a raven in display, the shimmering angle of a hummingbird's feathers in courtship, the sudden clap of a wood pigeon taking off. All of these actions are not only functional, they are expressive. They tell other creatures, I am here, I am strong, I am ready, I am afraid. The motion of flight becomes a kind of grammar. The way the wing is used becomes syntax. The pauses between flaps, the arcs through air, these are punctuation marks in the sky. And it is not just birds. Insects speak with their wings in ways we are only beginning to understand. Butterflies flash colours mid-flight that can startle or seduce. Some moths bear eye spots on their wings that mimic the gaze of predators, meant to confuse. When threatened, certain species open their wings suddenly, revealing patterns meant to look like larger creatures. It's not just camouflage, it's conversation, it's a declaration. I am not what I seem. Bees use wing beats as part of a dance, a waggle that tells their hive where to find flowers. The angle, duration, and vibration of their motion describes not just direction, but distance. It's one of the most precise non-verbal communications in the natural world. And yet it's entirely physical. The message is movement. The sentence is a series of turns. The paragraph is a pattern in space and time. Even the sound of wings becomes part of the message. The hum of a bee is not only a product of flight, it's a frequency that can trigger flowers to release pollen. This phenomenon, called buzz pollination, is a kind of duet between bee and bloom. One vibrates, the other responds. It's not magic, it's mechanics, refined by evolution until it feels like music. And in larger animals, like birds of prey, wings are used to command space. A hawk spreads its wings to appear larger, not just to other hawks, but to the creatures below, A turkey will fan its feathers in ritual, part intimidation, part performance. Peacocks most famously unfurl vast fans of colour, not with sound or scent, but with shimmering wings that shift slightly as they move. Each angle changes the light. Each step adds to the sentence. We might not think of this as language because it is not made with mouths, but the intention behind it is clear. It is shaped by context, response, adjustment. When a bird alters its display based on how another bird reacts, it's engaged in conversation. When a moth chooses to flutter closer or stay still, based on light or wind or presence, it is deciding what to say. This is not instinct alone. This is choice expressed through form. Consider the elaborate aerial ballets of starlings, thousands moving as one, dipping and rising like smoke. These murmurations are not choreographed in any conscious way, but each bird adjusts its position in response to its neighbours. The result is fluid communication, passed not by command but by awareness. Each wing beat is both action and reaction, a ripple of information moving across the sky. Even within species, wings tell stories. Young birds learn not just to fly but to fly right, to match the wing rhythms of their parents, to mimic their turns and recoveries. Insects adjust their flight based on wind and humidity, but also based on the presence of others. Some flies will change their wing beat frequency in the presence of a mate, creating a harmonic duet that may help pair them. Others use asymmetrical wing motions to signal direction or intention before mating or feeding. And when creatures cannot fly, wings still speak. The katydid, with its delicate leaf-like wings, rubs them together to create song. Crickets do the same. The sound is not incidental, it is crafted. Different species sing different songs, using their wings as instruments. The pitch, tempo and rhythm carry information. I'm here, I'm ready, I'm healthy. Even silence can be a message. The absence of wing movement in an expected context, when a bird suddenly goes still or a swarm hushes all at once, can mean danger. It can signal alertness. The absence of motion is felt just as deeply as motion itself. In this way, the still wing becomes a pause in the sentence, a breath before the next word. We often forget how expressive movement can be. But in the world of flying creatures, wings are more than tools. They are voices, and those voices speak every time they rise, the arc of a glide, the angle of descent, the sudden flutter before landing. These are choices shaped by environment and emotion, instinct and learning. So next time you see a bird lift from a branch, or a butterfly dance through the air, or even a dragonfly hover for a moment and vanish, watch not just what it does, but how. There is meaning in the movement. There is language in the wings. They are saying something, not with sound, but with shape, not with noise, but with presence. And if you pay attention long enough, you might begin to understand not the words, but the feeling behind them. The emotion of flight, the grammar of motion, the gentle sentences of the sky. Let us drift further into the air now, where silence is shaped by feathers and messages are carried not on breath, but on motion. Wings do not simply lift bodies. They reveal something more tender, more thoughtful, intention. Among creatures that fly, the way they move becomes the way they express. There is no alphabet, no grammar book, yet somehow the meaning remains. In the rhythm of flaps, the angles of arcs, the shift from speed to stillness, there is communication, not abstract but alive. In the world of butterflies, wing language reaches a quiet complexity. Courtship becomes a performance of movement. A male may follow a female in slow spiraling patterns, fluttering above and around her, tilting his wings the pattern is not just to impress, but to communicate his identity, health and readiness. A female with a simple pause or a shift of her own flight may answer, it's a dance not rehearsed but inherited, written into instinct over centuries of repetition. Some butterflies use ultraviolet colours only visible to their own kind. What looks dull to us may glow with signals in their vision. They are not just showing colour, they are showing information, which species they are, whether they are male or female, whether they have already mated. Their wings, even at rest, are full of context. And still others carry false messages, evolution's quiet trick. The viceroy butterfly mimics the monarch, whose wings warn of toxicity. This mimicry is not just a matter of colour, it is posture, pace, the way it moves through the air. A predator watches the shape of the glide and learns, not worth the risk. So the copy survives because its wings whisper the right lie. Elsewhere in the forests and cliffs, birds refine their own wing language. Raptors spread their wings in full display, not just to intimidate but to communicate territory, dominance, readiness. Songbirds add wing flicks to their vocal phrases, pairing motion with sound. A brief wing flutter may reinforce a warning call. A shoulder dip may soften an invitation. In many species, wings become part of courtship beyond flight. The male manakin, a small colourful bird of Central and South America, performs elaborate dances for females. Some slide across branches, some snap their wings to create sharp clicks. The movement is choreographed, learned, practiced. When a male doesn't execute the right wing motion at the right moment, the female loses interest. The message fails. The wings have spoken the wrong sentence. And among parrots, crows and ravens, birds known for intelligence, wings are not just tools for getting from place to place, they are part of a full-bodied expression. A wing held low may show submission. Wings spread wide in display are signs of alertness or challenge. These signals can change with context, the way our own gestures do. Sometimes the wings speak between species. A bird suddenly lifting in flight alerts others, squirrels, deer, even humans, that something has shifted. The air feels different. Something moved. It becomes a ripple of reaction, a kind of forest-wide awareness that begins with a flick of feathers. Insects too show this layered meaning. A male moth may flutter in short rhythmic pulses to release pheromones into the air, but the wings must move a certain way, enough to stir the scent, but not so much as to seem threatening. If a female is nearby, she will know exactly what the flutter means. No noise, no light, just the precise cadence of wings stirring a message into the night. Among grasshoppers and katydids, wings become sound makers, scrapers and surfaces creating unique songs. But those songs vary not just by species, but by situation. A call made in solitude is not the same as a call made when another male is near. The wings adjust, the message shifts. This is not a machine. This is nuance. Dragonflies, ancient and efficient, do not speak with sound, but they communicate with flight. They patrol territories in looping patterns, veering suddenly when another enters. Their wing positions shift to mid-hover, signalling readiness to chase or mate or evade. In their precision is clarity. In the human world, we have forgotten how often we once read wings. Sailors once watched seabirds to predict weather. Low flights meant storms. Farmers read the behaviour of swallows to time planting. In some cultures, the flutter of a moth by candlelight was seen as a sign, a spirit, a visitor. Wings meant something beyond motion. They carried a presence. There's a tenderness in this kind of communication, one that does not demand understanding, only attention. The firefly does not blink louder when no one replies. The bird does not shout its wing display. These are quiet languages, made of trust and pattern. They expect that someone is watching, someone is near, someone knows what it means when a creature moves just so. And the power of it lies not in noise, but in timing, in the moment when one wing lifts and another responds, in the meeting of two patterns that suddenly make sense together. These are not random motions, they are bridges. Even in stillness, wings hold stories. A folded wing can show rest, safety, hiding. An open one can mean readiness, invitation, challenge. The difference is slight, but everything. The angle, the tension, the context, it all matters. Just as a raised eyebrow or a tilted head speaks in our own language, so too do wings with their tiny shifts. And when we lose this awareness, we miss more than messages. We miss presence. Because wing language is never about one creature. It's about connection. One moving and another noticing. One signalling and another replying. It's not a solo act, it's a duet. A dance written in air. So next time you watch a swallow dart across the sky, or a bee hesitate at the lip of a flower, or even a moth flutter past your porch light, remember, what you are seeing is not just motion, it is language. Not human, but real. Not spoken, but deeply heard, by those who have learned to watch, to wait, and to answer with a movement of their own. Let us now return to where the air slows, where the wings grow tired, and the language of motion begins to settle into rest. In this final chapter, we don't watch for flight alone. We look for meaning in the quiet aftermath of movement, because the language of wings doesn't end when the flying stops. It lingers like an echo in stillness. It speaks even when folded, even when grounded, even when the body that once soared now rests in silence. For many creatures, the act of folding wings is as deliberate as flying. The way a bird tucks its feathers after a long migration, or how a butterfly carefully closes its wings to blend with bark or leaves, these are decisions shaped by safety, by camouflage, by the need to remain unnoticed. A sudden flare of colour in flight may disappear into stillness, as if the creature has vanished. But it hasn't vanished. It simply shifted languages, from bold motion to quiet stillness. Both are ways of speaking. The final moments of flight are often the most telling. A slow glide to land, a hovering pause before choosing the right leaf, a careful tilt to catch the last thermal. All of these gestures carry messages, not to us, always, but to the world around the flyer. A predator watching from a branch, a mate observing from the edge of a field, a rival nearby reading each flick of wing as signal. In migrating birds, wing language becomes a story written across continents. A sandpiper flying thousands of kilometers from the Arctic to the South American coast does not do so in one burst. It stops, it feeds, it gathers with others, and each time it lifts again into the air it shares a story, not just of location but of readiness. Its wings carry the weight of the journey, the decisions of where to rest, when to fly, how high to go, and other birds sensing this rhythm fall into step beside it. Flocks do not form by accident. They form through movement. One wing adjusts and another follows. A single turn cascades through a murmuration. The entire group becomes a sentence carried by wind. Each bird remains separate yet deeply aware of the others. This is coordination, yes, but more than that, it is conversation. A shared understanding that comes not through planning but through sensing, through presence. In bats, who use echolocation to move through night skies, wings play an even more intimate role. The way a bat tilts mid-flight, the sharpness of its turns, the pauses in its wing beats, these help shape the sounds it sends out and receives. Its body becomes both speaker and receiver. The language is not only in the clicks it emits, but in how its wings guide those clicks through space. There is a similar poetry in dragonflies, whose four wings move independently. They can hover, glide, shoot forward, shift directions in mid-air. Their movements are abrupt yet elegant, precise yet unpredictable. When two males meet in the air, their dance is not just a battle, it is a message of strength, territory, and intent. Who rises higher? Who shifts first? Who pauses? These become sentences, and one dragonfly leaves while the other stays. Some of the most delicate messages are exchanged between parent and offspring. Consider a mother bird teaching her fledglings to fly, not through force but by example. She lifts, glides, returns, waits. The young one watches, tries, falls, lifts again. In the space between flight and failure, a kind of understanding grows. The wings say, "Try again." The watching eyes say, "I will." Even after death, wings carry meaning. In the museum, in the forest floor, in the quiet hush of morning light, a fallen feather tells a story. Its shape, its wear, its colour, all speak of where the bird has been, what it has weathered, how it moved through the world. A single feather is not silent. It is a record. We are surrounded by wings, even when we don't see them. They leave traces in the air, in the silence, in the soft rustle above our heads. Their language continues in the way seeds are carried, in the way pollens drift. What one creature starts in flight, another completes in stillness. And maybe this is what the language of wings truly teaches us, that movement does not end with motion, that silence is not the absence of communication, but its continuation, that every beat, every glide, every pause writes something into the fabric of the world. When you stand in a field and a bird rises, you're witnessing more than escape. You're watching a decision, a statement, a feeling made visible. When you sit by a window and a moth flutters into view, it may be seeking light, but it is also performing, showing the rhythm that has kept it live through wind and night. When you see a butterfly rest with open wings, sun warming its back, it is not just basking. It is speaking softly of presence, of being here, still. We do not need to translate these things into words. We only need to recognize them, to see movement as message, to let ourselves be changed just a little by the grace of creatures who do not speak but are heard, who do not write but leave stories in the air, because the air is full of language. You can hear it in the soft flap over a pond, you can feel it in the breeze that carries wings past your ear, you can see it in the ripple of motion above the trees. Every creature that flies is saying something, not always to you, but always to someone. And if you listen, not with ears, but with attention, you may begin to understand not the details, not the words, but the tone, the gesture, the feeling. Wings do not lie, they cannot. They only move, and in that movement is honesty and beauty, and the quiet pulse of life itself, drifting always through the open sky. Beneath the trees, beneath the grass, beneath the soles of your feet, there is a rhythm. You cannot hear it, not in the way you hear birdsong or thunder, but it is there, steady and slow, like a heartbeat hidden inside the earth. It moves through roots and rivers, through stone and soil, and though we do not always notice it, this pulse shapes life, every season, every bloom, every turn of the tide. It is the earth's own rhythm, quiet and constant, guiding the living world from below. We often think of life as chaotic, a burst of energy, a wild unfolding of movement and change. But nature is not without order. It follows patterns, some fast, some so slow they seem still. There is timing in the way seeds crack open, in how animals migrate, in when rain falls and when it stops. This timing is not random, it is the result of signals that rise from deep within the earth itself. At the centre of this is the Schumann resonance, a series of electromagnetic waves that circle the earth, trapped between the ground and the sky. They are created by lightning, which strikes the planet thousands of times every second. Each strike sends a wave into this space between Earth and atmosphere. The result is a global hum, too low for us to hear, but always there. Scientists call it the Earth's natural frequency. Some call it the heartbeat of the world. This frequency is subtle, yet measurable. Sensitive instruments can detect its rhythm, and some researchers believe that life may have evolved in harmony with it, that our bodies, our cells, our cycles may resonate, however gently, with this quiet planetary breath. When people spend long periods away from Earth's surface, as astronauts do, they sometimes report a sense of disorientation. Some believe it is because they've left the hum behind, but this pulse is not only electromagnetic, it is biological, geological, seasonal. It is found in the rise and fall of groundwater, the migration of animals, the flowering of plants. Everything responds. Trees, for instance, do not grow at the same speed every day. There are pulses in their growth, surges and pauses that align with tides, with moonlight, with the invisible pull of the Earth's turning. Some scientists studying tree sap flow have discovered patterns that match lunar cycles. Not perfectly, not mechanically, but rhythmically. As if the trees are listening, not with ears, but with the slow awareness of their trunks and branches, as if they rise and rest in tune with forces that go unnoticed by most. Animals too feel this pulse, not just through the seasons, but through subtler shifts. Bees change their foraging behaviour with shifts in geomagnetic activity. Cows have been observed aligning themselves along magnetic north while grazing. Birds take flight in synchrony with wind and field changes that are silent to us. It is as if the earth is always speaking in low tones, and some creatures are still tuned in. Even beneath the oceans, deep in the darkest places, the earth's pulse is felt. Certain fish rise and fall with underwater tides driven by the moon and the planet's slow rotations. Coral reefs, though fixed in place, pulse with life in cycles that match the lunar calendar. They release their eggs in perfect unison once a year, guided by a moonlight and temperature, and something else, something quieter, something older. What we call instinct may sometimes be memory, not just personal, but planetary. A salmon returning to its spawning ground is not guessing. It is responding to a map etched into its very cells, shaped by water chemistry, temperature, and perhaps even the Earth's magnetic breath. A deer lifting its head before a storm, a flock of birds shifting direction hours before the wind changes. These are not accidents. They are answers to questions we cannot hear. And humans, though we often forget, are not separate from this. Our bodies carry rhythms, circadian, lunar, tidal, that once matched more closely to the world around us. We wake and sleep, eat and rest with cycles that echo the sky and soil. Some studies suggest that our brainwaves can subtly synchronize with the Schumann resonance, that our hearts beat in patterns that mirror the planet's low hum. When we walk through forests, when we sit quietly near rivers, when we lie down on the ground and close our eyes, we sometimes feel better without knowing why. Maybe it's the stillness, maybe it's the air, or maybe it's something deeper. The body remembering the rhythm it was built to follow. The pulse of the planet rising gently through our bones, reminding us of the time before clocks and screens and noise, reminding us how to breathe in step with the world. There is wisdom in this rhythm. Not loud, not fast, but steady. The kind of wisdom that lets seeds wait until the rain is right. That tells bears when to sleep and geese when to leave and flowers when to open. It's not thought, it's not choice, it's awareness, and it's always there. So when you stand still, truly still, and feel something settle in you, something that doesn't speak in words or logic, trust it. You may be feeling the earth itself, not as an idea but as a presence, not in your mind but in your blood, because the world is not quiet. It hums, it pulses, it speaks in cycles and currents, in tides and tremors, in flickers of magnetic field and loops of lightning. And some part of you, whether you know it or not, has always known how to listen. Let's go further now, deeper into this rhythm that lies just beneath awareness, a rhythm that has always been with us, whether we name it or not. It hums beneath the waves, ripples through soil, whispers across mountaintops. The earth does not move chaotically. It breathes, it turns, it pulses, and living things in their own way follow. They may not understand the source, but they respond, as if each heartbeat of the world sends a signal only the quiet can feel. In the roots of ancient trees, this pulse shapes growth, not as a constant push, but in waves. Root systems expand and rest, in rhythm with water tables and temperature and unseen signals in the soil. Some researchers have discovered slow electrical signals in the roots of plants, moving so gently they were once mistaken for noise, but they're not noise, they're communication, patterns, timing. A slow rhythm passed between trees, between fungi, between soil and stem. In forests, mycorrhizal networks, webs of fungi that connect roots, act like shared nervous systems. Through these threads, nutrients and warnings and support move from one plant to another. But this communication isn't constant. It has rhythms, like a tide. Some hours, the network is alive with signals. Other hours, it quiets. It is not just chemistry, it is tempo. A pulse that moves below, hidden beneath our footsteps. Birds, too, tune into the earth's subtle cycles. Migratory species often begin their journeys not with a date, but with a feeling, a shift in daylight, a change in wind, a quiet cue from the sky or the ground. Long before a human can detect the shift of seasons, the birds are ready. They do not calculate, they remember. Not as thought, but as timing passed down from ancestors who followed the same winds. Some birds use the position of the sun, the tilt of the earth, and even tiny changes in magnetic fields to set their path. But underlying all this is a deeper sense, a knowing of when to rise, when to move, when to go. That knowing is shaped by the planet's pulse. When they take flight, they're not just following the stars, they're flying in rhythm with the breath of the earth. Insects, small as they are, also move in patterns shaped by planetary cycles. Cicadas rise from the soil in synchronized generations, every 13 or 17 years, not because of weather, but because of internal clocks that echo deep, geological rhythms. How these clocks are set remains mysterious, but they are accurate. Year after year, the forest hums with their arrival, as if a timer buried in the ground has finally rung. Even inside oceans, where the sun barely touches, the pulse continues. In the Arctic, phytoplankton bloom in massive numbers, not randomly, but in waves. These blooms are shaped by light and temperature, yes, but also by the lunar cycle and the rotation of the Earth. Underwater tides shift with gravity, creating currents that carry nutrients at just the right moment. When everything aligns, the bloom begins, not a day before, not a day late. This synchronization is not only beautiful, it is essential. Whales, seals, seabirds, all depend on the timing of these blooms. If they arrive too early or too late, entire food chains falter. And so the animals have learned over countless generations to read the signals, to move in harmony with the Earth's turning. In humans, echoes of this pulse remain. Our sleep cycles, hormone releases, even our heartbeat patterns follow circadian rhythms, cycles of roughly 24 hours tuned to the rising and setting of the sun. But we carry deeper rhythms too. Women's bodies often move in cycles tied to the moon. Our moods shift with season and light. We call this biology. But it is also relationship. Our bodies remember a time when we rose with the sun and slept with the stars, when we moved with weather and fed in season. And even now, in the blur of digital time, some part of us still hears the old rhythm. We feel it when we sit quietly in a forest, when we stand barefoot on sand, when we float in water. The mind may be busy, but the body listens. The breath slows, the shoulders ease, something ancient comes forward, not spoken, not explained, just felt. Some traditions have long understood this. Indigenous peoples across the world speak of living in balance with the land, not just practically, but spiritually. Listening to what the earth says, planting by the moon, harvesting with care, resting when the land rests, they do not separate themselves from the rhythm, they join it. And in recent years, science has begun to circle back to these old understandings. Studies show that exposure to natural light improves sleep and mood, that spending time in forests reduces stress and inflammation, that living near green spaces can lengthen life. We are not separate from the pulse, we are shaped by it. Even in cities, even behind walls, even when we forget, it does not forget us. Technology often pulls us away from this rhythm. Lights that never dim, alarms that override sleep, calendars that demand productivity in all seasons, but the earth does not work this way. It has times for bloom and times for rest, times for expansion and times for waiting. If we remember this, we might also remember how to care for ourselves, not as machines, but as organisms, as part of the world. The planet pulses, not like a clock, but like a drumbeat, like breath. And to live in step with it is not to slow down, it is to move wisely, to act when the time is right, to know when to pause, to know when to begin. This doesn't mean living without planning, it means noticing, trusting the small shifts, letting your body speak, letting your life curve like the tides, outward, then inward, daylight, then shadow, effort, then ease, because everything on earth moves this way, not in straight lines, but in circles, in spirals, in returning rhythms, and those rhythms are the voice of a planet that has always known what time it is even when we don't. Now we arrive at the quiet centre of it all, the place where the earth's rhythm meets memory, meets meaning, meets motion. The pulse we've followed through root and wave, wing and tide does not end. It loops, it folds back on itself, it returns. And in this final stretch we settle into the truth that this rhythm, the planet's slow, steady thrum, is not separate from us. It is part of what we are. This rhythm is not a metaphor. It is not symbolic. It is physical, measurable, real. The earth breathes, not with lungs, but with movement. With the cycle of carbon through tree and air, with the rise and fall of tides pulled by the moon, with the drift of tectonic plates so slow we mistake them for stillness. And life, from the smallest cell to the largest whale, fits into that rhythm. No matter how different the shape or form, everything living answers to the same subtle call. In the deepest caves isolated from sunlight for millennia, some insects still follow circadian rhythms. They live in eternal dark, yet their bodies keep time as if the sun still touches their wings. In the human body, certain proteins rise and fall in 24-hour cycles, even in complete darkness. It is as if life was stamped with the earth's turning from its beginning, and the pattern stayed, even when light disappeared. And still deeper, there are rhythms we barely understand. In the field of chronobiology, scientists have found rhythms not tied to the sun or moon or even temperature, but ones that follow the Earth's magnetic field. The Schumann resonance, that soft, low-frequency electromagnetic wave produced by lightning, may subtly influence our brain waves. It's faint, impossible to hear, but some studies show our bodies notice it anyway, that it calms, that it synchronizes, that we feel more grounded when exposed to it, literally grounded. But beyond biology and physics, the Earth's pulse is emotional too. It shapes how we feel, even if we don't name it. You can stand at the ocean's edge and feel your breath begin to match the waves. You can lie on warm earth and feel your heartbeat slow, matching something older than yourself. You can walk in a forest and feel your thoughts quiet, not because the forest says anything, but because the rhythm there is slow and sure, and part of you still knows how to match it. This is not magic, it's memory. A memory the body carries, a memory of being part of the whole. And while we often think of connection as something we build, the earth reminds us, it is something we return to. We can see it in culture. Drums in nearly every ancient society mirror the human heartbeat. Songs begin with rhythm before melody. Dances mimic tides and migration. Festivals follow the moon. Even our stories, our myths, our traditions unfold in cycles. Life, death, return, sleep, wake, repeat. There is something about the circular rhythm that feels right, that feels like home. Perhaps this is why in moments of stillness we long for nature. We go to the mountains, the lakes, the forests, not for adventure alone, but to remember, to come back into alignment, to feel our breath move with the wind, our steps with the trail, our thoughts with the curve of the hill, and yet modern life often pushes us out of this rhythm. It teaches us to move faster, to produce constantly, to ignore rest. But the planet never forgets to pause. It turns slowly. It lets winter take hold before spring can return. It lets forests sleep. It lets the moon darken before it glows again. If we paid more attention to that, we might treat ourselves with more kindness. Not everything must bloom at once. Not everything must move forward every day. The planet pulses, and in that pulse is permission to slow down, to trust timing, to rest, to wait for the right season to return. This rhythm isn't soft because it's weak. It's soft because it's wise, because it has lasted. It's what tells birds when to fly and trees when to leaf and fish when to spawn. It's what turns a seed into a forest, not by rushing, but by listening. The pulse doesn't shout, it whispers. And the ones who hear it are the ones who live longest, deepest, most connected. So what would it mean to live by this rhythm again? Not by abandoning modern life, but by remembering how to listen beneath it. To rise early sometimes, and sleep when the body asks. To work when energy flows and rest when it ebbs. To spend time under open sky, to walk without headphones, to sit on the ground, to plant something, to wait for it to grow. These are not grand acts, but they are acts of return, small ways of saying, I'm still part of this. I still hear the rhythm. I still feel the pulse. Because no matter how far we drift, it is always there. Beneath the traffic and headlines and bright electric light, the earth continues, turning, breathing, pulsing, and we are made of the same materials. We carry its dust in our bones, its water in our blood, its rhythm in our cells. We are not just living on the planet, we are the planet, briefly walking, briefly waking, briefly remembering itself. So when you lie in the grass, or stand beneath stars, or close your eyes beside a tree, feel for it. That deep old rhythm, that slow, quiet pulse. You don't have to name it. You don't have to explain it. Just let it move through you. Because you are not lost. You are not late. You are already in step with something vast and gentle and true. The planet knows where you are. The rhythm is still there, and it has never stopped waiting for you to listen.